to private sector in droves. People who actually understand health systems, for instance, they know that private healthcare is not always either efficient or less expensive. And given the way the world is moving, higher costs do not always mean better outcomes in healthcare. United States spends the highest amount per capita on healthcare. It spends 17% of American GDP, which itself is one of the highest in the world in per capita income terms. 17% of GDP on healthcare. And yet America is only 24th or so in health outcomes measured by what is called disability adjusted life years. Daily is one of the measures of health outcomes. It is not anywhere near the top 5 or 10. So the higher expenditure does not necessarily mean better health care. But this is a sophisticated point. It's not easy for people to grasp unless you're really a healthcare expert and you really understand the way the systems work. People always think, no, more classy place and more expenditure, more sophisticated intervention, more complex intervention, better health. It's not true. And that's where leadership comes in. Wise leadership comes in. Now we are in a catch-22 situation. If you don't improve the healthcare outcomes, people don't want to give up this expensive private care. So you have to somehow have now a framework in which the roadmap is now built. Because the people have lost faith in the public systems, whether it's education or healthcare. So you cannot therefore suddenly say you stop going to private hospitals. Day before yesterday, when this terrible tragedy happened in Hyderabad, many of these people were taken to Osmania and other hospitals. Yesterday I went to visit Osmania among other hospitals. There were only 2 people remaining. And those 2 are very minor injuries relatively. Everybody else, once they got to know that the government is paying for the hospitalization costs in corporate hospitals, everybody moved to corporate hospitals. Because today, we lost faith. So we have to improve this and do that. So one thing you can do as citizen is twofold really. One is, let us do the primary health part. I mentioned to you, for instance, the rubella vaccination. Keep hollering and also involving many other non-governmental people to try and improve that part, the prevention part and the basic health care and family care. And 2, understand the way health systems work and continuously mobilize public opinion as well as push the system at the political level for them to at least start changing it. It can't happen overnight. We messed up too much. But now we have to slowly retrace the steps. And ultimately our vision should be to build something like the British National Health Service. Except that in Britain there was hardly any private sector healthcare at that time. Therefore they could build afresh the public sector system. Here 80% of the expenditure is now in private sector. From the other end we have to now move in that direction. It's a very complicated subject. I don't want to go into details. I've studied and written extensively about it. But there are ways of doing it. Understand what Britain is doing, for instance, in healthcare. That will be helpful. Anna is a good friend of mine. In fact, the vehicle that I used for campaigning was first used by Anna in Maharashtra for campaigning in Maharashtra state, not for elections, but during election time to mobilize public opinion and to spread public awareness. I actually made arrangements for his campaign as well as infrastructure and the people to escort him, etc. So he's a good friend. And the cause he was espousing is the right one. After all of us want that. And he's a visible symbol. India likes all these icons, that sort of thing. But there are 2 problems with that. First is, there is no deep understanding of what it's about. Anna's notion is you have one powerful Lokpal, everything will be all right. There are many powerful people in the country. Chief Justice is there, Election Commission is there, somebody else is there. There's no one panacea. He never understood that. Even now he keeps saying, just with one Lokpal, everything will happen. It's easy for people to think, there's one Lokpal or some other god, everything will be set right. Therefore, it captured popular imagination. But that's not the way institutions anywhere in the world are built. How do you choose this Lokpal? Where is he going to come from? Is he going to come from God? And then if that fellow becomes corrupt or inefficient, then what do you do? So unless you have a set of institutions which take care of the problems, you will not be able to address it. The second is, in public affairs, you always must be willing to negotiate and come up with a better solution. Mahatma Gandhi said, the best and quickest way of getting justice is rendering justice to your adversary. Even in the service of what is good, even if you're otherwise a moral person, you must never utter a lie or inaccuracy in order to make a point temporary. Anna repeatedly broke this adage. The bill introduced in Parliament by the government in 2011 December was an excellent bill. You take it from me. I'm an authority on the subject. This whole Lokpal issue came up because I made it a part of the Administrative Reforms Commission recommendations as a member of that commission. In the current form, it came up because of that. It was I who raised that slogan first, so I know what I'm talking about. It addresses 85 to 90% of what we need. Instead of saying, look, it's a good bill, let's do something more if possible, what did Anna and his colleagues do? They said, it's a terrible bill, it's a joke ball, it's horrible, it's a failure, it's a disaster, which is an absolute lie. Now, what is the net result? Even a good provision of Lokpal bill, namely Lokayukta in states, because real corruption is here. Most people really are bothered about administration on a day-to-day basis. And that's what in states and local government sees. That is now deleted. Because the fellows who wanted to scuttle the bill, they used Anna's argument it's a bad bill. And because people don't go into detail, media now bothers about these things, they said states' rights are violated, which is a lie. On that pretext, they forced the government to amend this bill in Lok Sabha. And finally, when it came to the committee, I was with the parliamentary committee for 3.5 hours when the first bill was introduced, and for 2.5 hours when the second bill, the amended bill, was now come before the committee. Despite the persuasion of many people like us, they now quietly deleted the Lokayukta chapter. Ultimately, even a Lokpal bill enacted is not going to serve India. So it shows a complete lack of strategic sense and complete lack of willingness to sit with them and accommodate and acknowledge something good that is done and the ability to get something more done. When the outcome you seek is only television cameras and publicity but not actual achievements, unfortunately tragedy is always in the making. So much so when you came to Hyderabad today, not even a handful of people are willing to be there. Because after some time, how can you keep on sustaining the emotion without outcomes? What is this, all this emotion about? It's for a purpose, right? If the purpose is served, doesn't matter how it is served, is that important or simply generating this and every day getting front page headlines is important? All of us must learn lessons from these things. Focus on sensible outcomes, practical outcomes. Mobilize public opinion, but never make it all or none. And recognize that there are grays. There's no black or white. It is not a fight between good and evil. It's a fight in a country to improve the system systematically. Unless you build the pressure, even they cannot do it because they have pressures also of different kind. And therefore, we're really partners in that sense. So how do you make things happen? If our notion is that everybody in politics is a rascal and everybody outside politics is an angel, it is illogical, right? As like natural selection has God selected all bad fellows into politics and all good fellows outside politics. That's not true. There are some things happening. You must understand that and appreciate that. That is missing in politics.
What went wrong with India after independence? Like, what went right with US and China, and what went wrong with India? So, can you analyze what?
China already we discussed. US or Britain.
So, are people?
Don't ever think that they are all fantastic. The problem we have and the problem they don't have is they had hundreds of years to evolve to set things right. You know, the Industrial Revolution in Britain, for instance. We all heard of Industrial Revolution? Do you know what was the growth rate during that time, economic growth rate of Britain during that time, during the revolution? Can anybody hazard a guess? The economic growth rate of Britain during the Industrial Revolution. Make a guess.
95%.
25% is one number. Anybody else? Annual economic growth rate. 5%. Anybody else? It was 1%. In a totally feudal, stagnant economy, 1% annual growth was spectacular. Because you're moving from an agrarian economy without machines to an economy with machines. And that meant a revolution, because over a period of 30 or 40 years, 1% growth rate meant doubling of incomes in about 50 years' time, which was unthinkable in human history. Today, supposing India has 1% growth rate and Manmohan Singh tells you to pay, the country will be better off with 1%, what would you do? 5% growth rate, we are all terribly depressed today. The world is moving rapidly today. That is the challenge for us. Those countries had the opportunity to take time to adjust things. America took 200 plus years to be where it is today. Its institutions were reshaped. There was a lot of corruption there. Britain, there was a lot of corruption. In the 1860s, let me conclude with this. In the 1860s, there was terrible corruption in Britain. But members of parliament, that office was for sale. One MP wrote to his constituents a letter which is still preserved in the British archives. The letter goes something like this, I'm paraphrasing it. He said, you know and I know that I bought your constituency in a public auction for £5,000 sterling. You could become an MP by simply participating in an auction and spending that money. The money is shared by the limited voters. But you do not know that I know that I will not be your next MP because you already sold this constituency to another gentleman for £8,000. But what you should know is that I've already bought another constituency for £3,000. And both of us therefore are gainers. You are now getting £3,000 for this by selling the same office. I am now spending £2,000 less for buying the same office. This is a real letter. Then came Gladstone. In 1868, he became Prime Minister for the first time, a great liberal. Gladstone understood the malaise of British institutions. And he systematically, brick by brick, laid foundations for New Britain. Today, when you look at Britain or America or some other country, you look at a still picture. And you see India's still picture and you think that, my God, it's so terrible, that's so wonderful. But you don't really realize that it's actually a motion picture in operation. The great American presidential debates, you know the history of it. In the late 1950s, when somebody had a press conference in Cincinnati, in the state of Ohio, there were just two journalists, nobody bothered about it. But in 1960, because of an accident of fate, because John Kennedy became the Democratic candidate, and he needed to tell the country that he was capable because he was an unknown greenhorn, just a moneyed fellow with a playboy. And Richard Nixon, who was the vice president already for 8 years, he wanted to hammer John Kennedy and prove that his statesmanship and experience were superior. And therefore they had a debate. And of course in that debate, Kennedy won, and he won the election by a narrow margin. But for the next 16 years after that, there was no presidential debate. Though television came into vogue. Nobody wanted it. In 76 again there was a debate because Jimmy Carter, unknown candidate as Georgia governor, he wanted the debate to prove his credentials. And an incumbent president was never elected, Jerry Ford. He was actually elevated to vice presidency by nomination because vice president had to resign. Then the president had to resign. Therefore, the man who was not even a vice president became president. So he wanted to prove his credentials. Therefore, in 76 there was another debate. After that, the debate became a continuing thing. See how long it took for America, with its technology, with its democratic institutions, its public discourse, its transparency. 26 years for presidential debates to become the norm. Now you look at that and say, why don't we have it? What is this? You know, not going to debate for 2 years. So don't ever think those countries are wonderful. No. We are the same as them. They had strengths and we have strengths. They had and they have weaknesses, we have weaknesses. Different weaknesses, different strengths, not necessarily the same. It's like a pack of cards. Everybody doesn't get the same strengths and weaknesses. You get one strong suit, you get another strong suit. But we are all human beings. We are not that different. We are all the same. Leadership lies in understanding what is wrong and setting things right, inspiring people and taking them forward. That's one kind. Another kind is use what is available. You ascend a position but destroy the people. Our fellows are doing the second one pretty well. Now we have to aim at the first one, increase. So don't think that other countries have done very well. India has done very bad. Actually, India has done spectacularly. For a country of our background, our poverty, our illiteracy, to accept universal franchise on day one and then make it work this long and this well is a miracle. Take the case of Germany. Germany took 9 years of blood and iron to unify 39 German-speaking provinces, all the same language, same skin color, same religion, same literature, Same history, but it took 9 years of blood and iron. Tens of thousands of soldiers had to lose their lives. Italy, 9 Italian-speaking provinces took 23 years to unify. And the statesmanship of King Emmanuel II, then Garibaldi, Mazzini, all these people. Take India. There were 540 princely states that were integrated. Of every conceivable language, religion, caste, skin color, race, every conceivable diversity. And we could do it in 15 months without a shot being fired. In just 15 months, only in the state of Hyderabad. Only in this state of Hyderabad, there was some bloodshed, and there too, the Indian army lost fewer than 10 soldiers. In an enterprise this magnificent. So don't berate yourselves, don't self-flagellate yourselves. Yes, there are things wrong. They can be set right. You're all good, we're all bad is a silly response. It's historically wrong. It's completely wrong. Look at the way we handle language. Sri Lanka, just 2 languages. Sinhala and Tamil. Even now, you see Tamil Nadu advertisements and you see what happened after Prabhakaran's son's flight was now publicized and all that. For 30 years there was strife and murder and mayhem, and now they're trying to pick up the pieces. There's 2 languages they could not reconcile. Sri Lanka is equal to about 4 or 5 districts of Andhra Pradesh. Take Pakistan, became free along with us, just because they could not handle language and 2 different cultures. Bengali versus Punjabi. The nation could not survive 25 years. Take Belgium. There's 2 languages. The Finnish people speak Dutch language, and the French-speaking people are a big minority. They are not able to form a government. That whole state, that whole country is equal to 1 district of Andhra Pradesh. They are not able to form a government for years. Take Yugoslavia. It broke up into so many pieces, I can't even recall how many there are. Take Canada. Every other day, there is a banner of revolt and secession because Quebec province speaks French, the rest of Canada speaks English. They're not able to reconcile that. In a very developed country, very mature and civilized country. And take India. See how many languages are so seamlessly and peacefully and harmoniously merged together. The linguistically representative states, the 3-language formula, the remarkable ease with which there is no hatred or anger against Kannada or Tamils or Telugus or something. We all recognize there are of course some minor prejudices here and there. Telugu people say Tamil is Aravam. I'm sure Tamil people have another pejorative word for Telugu. But these are minor human failings. But on the whole, we are willing to respect each other. We are willing to live, coexist. So what we accomplished is extraordinary. And we are an extraordinary society because there is no other country which can even remotely match our diversity. And we had it together. Other countries cannot even dream of it. We are bigger than a continent. Don't think of India as a country. In terms of diversity, there's no match, there's no comparison. Probably half the world in terms of diversity. Yes, we bungled in some respects, but there are reasons. What I tried to communicate is a sense of where and why we have gone wrong. There is a rational, logical approach to it. And now how do we make it happen? Because we have the benefit of modernity. We are no longer an insular people. We understand what human society has taught us in 5,000 or 10,000 years. Whereas most people through the ages, they are totally insular. Their village, their small little community, or their small little tribe, beyond that they could not imagine. Now we have the benefit of mankind's total experience. That's what education is about. We have the best practices. We've done some things well, some things badly. How do we set these things right? That is the only approach that will take us far. This self-flagellation thing that we are bad, or this gloating and thinking that we are fantastic, both are silly responses. We are human beings. And we are all of the same stock. We are not different from others. And we can do it. And we have the resources, we have the technology. We have an opportunity as now before. And this generation can now tell the next generations that, look, we have solved all the problems inherited by us. The next generation, now you create your own problems and we solve them. Because every generation will have some problems. You think America has no problems? Ask them about the gun culture. Ask them about public transport. Ask them about the crime in many areas. So don't belabor, even about this women's safety, for instance, just to give one number for you. Some of the discussion is totally uninformed. I'm very disappointed. Yes, there is a problem in this country with increasing urbanization. But if you take the total number of sexual assaults in India compared with other countries, we have 30,000 or so reported. Let's assume another 30,000 go unreported. You know, in the United States, we have 15 times the number of sexual assaults per unit population compared to us. You know, in Britain, for a small country, they have 15,000 annual sexual assaults. And if extrapolated, they will have 360,000. People are forgetting that. My God, in India, women are not safe. Yes, there are problems. Let's address them. But it's not that we are a terrible society as opposed to others. These are challenges in a rapidly changing world. Increasing urbanization, breakup of joint families, breakup of caste and other social rigidities. Some of it is good, some of it is bad. How do you therefore address these problems and create a new framework in a modern context to address these challenges? That's the approach that leads dividends. Not breastfeeding, not abusing the next bill available, not pretending that we are utterly moral, or not really getting into deepest depression thinking that we are utterly immoral. Neither is a good response. A practical, robust, sensible response, because you are in a world where things can be changed. You have an opportunity which no other generation had. Because the two greatest senses to my mind are the unfulfilled potential. Every child, if is not guaranteed an opportunity to fulfill her true potential that God or nature has given, to me that's a sin. And the second great sin is avoidable suffering. Death and old age you cannot avoid. But premature death, unnecessary infection, preventable disease, these are fully avoidable. India is home to these two great scourges, unfulfilled potential and avoidable suffering. But it's in our hands to be able to change both these. We have the resources, we have the technology. Can we make that happen? That is the challenge. Your generation can make that happen. So stand tall and proud, dignity and integrity, confidence that comes from knowledge, understanding of institutions, with passion and with love for the country, not because you are noble, but because you are practical. You want your lives to be better, you realize the other country being better, your lives cannot be better beyond the point. And go about it in a systematic, commonsensical manner, not breastfeeding, not chest thumping, not self-flagellation, not glory. I hope these 2 hours or so has given you some sense of the possibilities. There's no way we could discuss the complexity of India and the magnitude of the problems and the solutions in a discussion. It's more than a course, it's probably a lifetime. But if it gives you a sense of what is possible and give you different kind of tools intellectually to examine these issues, I think our purpose is served. And I hope you will consider your time well spent. And I certainly consider my time well spent. I wish you all the very best. Good luck.